Hello everyone, my name is Krishnaveni. I am pursuing BCom first year. I am from Government Degree College Armoor from Nizamabad district. Today I am going to give you a presentation on the topic sources of finance from the subject business organization. We all know that every business organization requires money for financing assets or to carry out everyday financial activities in business. So before going to know about sources of finance, let us focus on the concept capital. What is capital? Capital means the initial amount we need to start any business, any kind of business we need money to start. So this is called as capital. This capital is broadly classified into two categories. First one is fixed capital and second one is working capital. So let us see what is fixed capital. Fixed capital means the investment made in fixed assets is called as fixed capital. It means fixed assets are, for example, land, building, machinery and of course some vehicles and furniture. These all are fixed assets. It means they remain in the business for a very long period of time. Suppose if we take any land or building, it belongs to any business organization. It remains in the business maximum to maximum 10 to 20 years and machinery and plant also. It will remains in the business for a very long period of time. We won't change the machineries and plants in business every year. And this fixed capital, it plays a very essential and crucial role in every business organization. It is required for to start the business and to sustain the business. It means we earlier discussed that any business organization requires fixed capital to start up and to sustain the business. It means if we want to expand the existing business or if we want to develop our business enterprise, we again need the fixed capital. And at the same time, fixed capital is required for modernization and renovation of our industry. It means nowadays every business organizations and industries are using latest technologies and latest methods of production. So to modernize our business industries, we need the fixed capital. But the requirement of this fixed capital is varies from unit to unit. Why? Because it depends upon the nature of the business unit that we have selected. Suppose there are genetic industries and constructive industries, manufacturing industries. So it depends upon the nature of business. The requirement of fixed capital is also different. And by knowing this, let us see what is working capital. Working capital means the investment made in current assets is called as working capital. It means current assets are, for example, inventories and bills receivable, etc. Inventories means stock. Stock, it won't remain same in every financial year. It will go on changing. So if we see stock, we'll buy the stock in the starting of the business and we made the production. After that, and we sell the goods in market. And coming to the bills of exchange, bills receivable, as far as accounting transactions are concerned, bills receivable means when money is receivable, it may be in a form of promissory notes or it may be in a form of bills of exchange. We call it as bills receivable. So this bills receivable is also one of the current asset. The investment we made in assets like this is called as working capital. And this working capital is required for carry out everyday financial activities in business like purchasing of raw materials and payment of salaries to employees and wages to workers, transport charges, electricities of industries, etc. And by knowing this, let us move on to the next point, that is decision making. Decision making plays a very crucial role in every business. To start any business, we need to plan in a proper way. Decision making means, why? Because all managers, they are always concerned with problems like what to do, when to do and who is to do it. So the decision making is a process by which an individual or an whole organization selects the place or a position from several alternatives. It means, for example, we want to start a textile industry. We decided to start a textile industry. It means a cloth manufacturing industry. What we have to do is, first we have to know what are the fixed asset, what are the main fixed assets we need to start the textile industry. What are the main assets we need? We need a place that we want to start, where we want to start the industry, and we need machinery to start the production. And we decided now what are the main assets, and next what we have to do is, we have to analyze that how much total investment we need to buy the assets, and then we require working capital. We have to analyze how much working capital we require to start the production. This plays very important role. Why? Because just let us imagine we have rupees 1 lakh in our hand, and we decided what are the main assets we need, and we know how much fixed capital we require to buy the assets. We invested 50,000 rupees in machinery, and we invested 50,000 rupees in land, and then what is the next process? We have to start the production. So, to start the production, we need the working capital. Without adequate working capital, there is neither production nor profits. That's why I said that working capital plays a very crucial role in any business. And finally, what we have to decide is, from where we get all the source, from where we get all the investment to start the business enterprise. So, going to this, objectives of the presentation is, or the concept is, to understand the importance of finance and to identify the different sources of finance. Importance of finance is right from the very beginning, when the idea gets in the mind of entrepreneur to start a new business unit, he has to invest initial amount in business organization. Then only the business enterprise is in a position to work. Without adequate finance, no business organization can work successfully. And coming to the various sources of finance, finance is classified into 3 main categories, that is short term finance, medium term finance and long term finance. Let us see what is short term finance. Short term finance means it is required for a very short period of time, that is only up to 1 year, and the short term finance, it is required for to carry out everyday business activities like payment of salaries and payment of wages, transport charges, and to purchase raw materials for the business. And let us see what is medium term finance. Medium term finance is required for a period of time, that is more than 1 year, but only up to 5 years, not more than 5 years. And such finance is required for the replacement of outdated machineries and expansion of the existing business like heavy advertisements, etc. And let us see what is long term finance. In long term finance, it is required for a very long period of time, that is more than 5 years, and such finance is required to buy fixed assets, like we earlier discussed what are the fixed assets: land, building, machinery, plant, furniture, etc. It means fixed assets, they have a relatively permanent in nature, and they are especially not intended for sale. And in these 3 categories, we have various sources of finance. Let us see what are they. In short term finance, we have trade creditors, commercial papers, factoring, intercorporate deposits and working capital finance. And in medium term finance, we have issues of preference shares and issue of debentures, loans from banks and public deposits or fixed deposit, and loans from financial institutions. And in long term finance, we have issue of shares and issue of debentures, retained earnings and loans from specialized financial institutions and venture capital. So, let us discuss one by one. In short term finance, we have working capital finance. Let us see what is working capital finance. Working capital finance means some commercial banks provides loans to business organizations. We call it as bank credits. It may be in a form of loans or bills discounting, cash credit and overdrafts, etc. It means every business organization takes loans from some banks and bills receivable. When business organization receives bills from customers, we can discount that bills in bank. And cash credits and overdrafts. Overdrafts means when a business entrepreneur who have less amount in his bank account, who is a current account holder, he can expect more money in his account from the bank. It is called as overdraft. And coming to the next one, that is trade creditors. Trade creditors is nothing but they are the suppliers of our business goods to the market with service whom we haven't paid yet. It means they supplies our goods without taking any payment at the right time. It means they expect money sometimes later. And let us see what is intercorporate deposits. Intercorporate deposits means companies gives short-term finance to each other to solve the problem of working capital crisis, and it is a part of mutual understanding between the companies. It means two business enterprises, they provide short-term loans to each other, and it is helpful to their working capital. It means to carry out everyday business financial activities. And let us see what is next one. Next we have is commercial papers. Commercial papers means commercial papers means they are the unsecured short-term loans utilized by the business organization. Business organization requires the commercial papers to pay some short-term liabilities of the companies. And next one is factoring. Factoring is a financial transaction, and it's a type of debitor finance. It is used by the company. In this, the business organization sells its invoices and bills of its customers to the third parties. It means business organization, when it gets the bills from its customers, instead of going to bank and discounting the bills, business organization can sell its bills received to the third party. It means to the another person before the maturity date. It is called as factoring. And let us move on to the medium term finance. In medium term finance, we have issue of shares, issue of debentures, loans from banks, and public deposits or fixed deposits, and loans from financial institutions. Let us see one by one. Issue of shares. Shares means the total capital of the company which is divided into large number of parts, equal parts, which have the same face value. For better understanding, let us take an example that we have rupees 10 lakh, that is our total capital of the company, and it is divided into 1 lakh equal parts which have same nominal or face value, that is rupees 10. This one part is called as share of that company, and these shares are generally two types. One is equity share and the other one is preference share. And next one is issue of debenture. Debenture means it is issued by the company under its common seal, acknowledging that undertaking certain sum of money and it will repay the certain sum of amount in a fixed future date with a particular rate of interest. It means when it is a security and proof that we invested some money in that company. Debenture is a creditorship security. For better understanding, we can take the example of bill, normal bill. When we went to the shop, when we buy any goods, shopkeeper will give us bill with paid stamp. It means we buy some goods in that shop, and bill is a proof that we purchased some goods in their shop. So in the same way, debenture is also proof that company has borrowed some money from us. The debenture is proof for that. And let us see what is the next point. Loans from banks. Bank loans is a very most common form of working capital that every business enterprise or every business firm is using. We take the bank loans and we will repay the bank loan in a fixed future date or in installment methods. And fixed deposits or public deposits, it means some public companies, they can accept fixed deposits from the public for a period of time ranging 6 months to 3 years. If any company is interested in public deposits, can give an advertisement in newspaper, and any member from public can fill up the prescribed form and deposit the money to that company. And let us see what is the next point, that is loans from financial institutions. There are some financial institutes, they provide loans to business organization like Industrial Development Bank of India and Industrial Credit Investment Corporation of India and state level financing corporations, etc. They provide loans to business organizations, and business enterprises, they can use the loans provided by that organization. And let us see long term finance. In long term finance, we have sources of financing like again we have issue of shares, and again we have issue of debentures, and retained earnings, loans from specialized financial institutions, and venture capital. Let us see issue of shares. Earlier we discussed what is share, and shares are of two types. One is equity share and the second one is preference share. Let us see what is equity share. Equity share means it is the ownership capital of the company. It means it is a permanent share that we cannot withdraw the equity share in the lifetime of the business, whereas preference shares are not like that. Preference shareholders, they enjoy the preferential right over the equity shares. It may be in a payment of dividends or it may be in a repayment of capital. The difference between these two shares, equity share and preference share, is equity shareholders, they cannot get dividends in the end of every financial year. Basically, for suppose the financial year is completed and company earned profits. So what happens, company have to pay to everyone like salaries of board of directors or salaries to employees, wages and everything. Then if there is any remaining amount, it will goes to the equity shareholders as dividends. If suppose there is no profits in that financial year, it means there is no dividends to the equity shareholders in that particular financial year. But whereas preference shares, they the preference shareholders, they compulsory gets dividends in the end of financial year according to the agreement they wrote before starting the business in a particular rate of interest. And let us see what is next one. Next one we have is issue of debenture. Earlier we discussed debenture. What is debenture? It depends upon the size of the business. We can take it as a short term finance or we can take it as a long term finance. And next we have is retained earnings. Retained earnings means when company get profits, the company has to reinvest the profits in the business again. It is also called as plowing back profits. It means at the end of the financial year, if company gets any profit and by payment finished of all payments, if there is any remaining amount, company can reinvest that amount in business. That is not necessary, but company is interested, then it can invest in the business again. It is called as retained earnings. And let us see what is the next one. There are some more specialized financial institutes other than we earlier discussed, like IDBI, Industrial Development Bank of India, and ICICI, Industrial Credit Investment Corporation of India, and SFCs, State Financial Corporations, and IFCI, Industrial Finance Corporation of India, UTI, Unit Trust of India, and SIDCs, State Industrial Development Corporations, and SIDBI, Small Scale Industrial Development Bank of India. These are the specialized financial corporations. They provide loans to industries, and business organizations can enjoy the loans from specialized financial institutions. And next one is venture capital. Venture capital, it is introduced by the concept of venture capital is introduced in America in 19th century, and later on it spread overall the world in earlier 20th centuries. Venture capital is required to start up the businesses like small scale industries, and venture capital is also called as risk capital. So, by learning this, let us have a recap of what we learned today. We have seen what is capital, and what are the types of capital we have, and what are the various sources of finance we have in the business organization. And I would like to share some additional information other than our syllabus, which is useful to our viewers. There are some more financial institutes. They are useful to business organization for taking loans or to solve the problem of working capital crisis. They are seed capital assistance. Seed capital assistance, it is designed by IDBI. It has 1% service charge for 5 years, and a deposit, certificate of deposit. Certificate of deposit, it means it is issued by banker to a person specifying that certificate of deposit with a particular future period of time and with a particular rate of interest. There is an advantage to this certificate of deposit holders. They can sell the certificate of deposit to the other person before the maturity date of that certificate of deposit. And next one is internal cash accrual. Internal cash accrual means it accumulates that retained earnings and depreciation charges. It means the profits of the company as well as the depreciations of the company comes under the internal cash accrual. And so by this, every business organization, whether it is small, medium or large, but every business organization requires finance to carry out everyday business activities and to achieve the targets of the business activities. And without adequate finance, no business organization can successfully work. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. I would like to thank CCE and Mana TV. Okay, let us have a recap that what we have learnt in this today's session. We have learnt about capital and types of capital we have, and how to we make a decision to start up the business and to lead the business in a proper way. And we have learnt the importance of finance and what are the various sources of finance. We have in 3 categories. Okay. Yeah. We have long-term, medium-term finance, long-term finance and short-term finance. In short-term finance, so let us have a quick look on the table. In short-term finance, we have trade creditors, commercial. Okay, we have trade creditors, commercial paper, factoring, intercorporate deposits, and working capital finance. Trade creditors. Trade creditors, we earlier discussed that they are the suppliers of our business goods, and they expect money sometime later. It means they serve without money to the business organization. And commercial papers. Commercial papers, they are utilized by the business organization uh, for to meeting short-term liabilities of the company. And factoring is a financial transaction, and it is a type of debit finance. It is used by the company in which business organization can sell its invoices and bills to the third party. It means before the maturity date, if we need any emergency fund, instead of going to the bank, a company can sell its bills receivable and invoices to the other person. Intercorporate deposits. Earlier we said that intercorporate deposits are issued by the company. Intercorporate deposits are issued by the company. Two companies, any two companies, they can provide short-term loans to each other. To solve the problem of working capital crisis, and it provides mutual understanding between the two companies. And working capital finance is some commercial banks, they provide loans to business industries. We can also call it as bank credit. It may be in a form of loans, or it may be in a form of fixed overdrafts or bills discounting, etc. And in medium term finance, we have issue of shares. We earlier discussed that shares are of two types. One is equity share and the second one is preference share. Equity shareholders, they are the equity share is a permanent capital of that company. It means but they cannot withdraw the equity shares in the lifetime of the company, whereas preference shareholders are not like that. They can enjoy the preferential right over the equity shareholders. It may be in a form of, it may be in a payment of dividends, or it may be in a payment of capital. And there is a difference between equity shareholders and preference shareholders. Basically, when the financial year is completed and the company earns profit, if company earns any profit, company have to pay to everyone salaries of employees or salaries to board of directors, and then if there is any remaining amount, it will goes to the equity shareholders as dividends, whereas preference shareholders are not like that. Preference shareholders, they definitely get dividends in the end of every financial year for a fixed rate of interest. And coming to the next one, debentures. Debenture is a creditorship security to the holder of debenture. It means, suppose we invested some amount to the company, and the debenture, it is issued by the company acknowledging that certain sum of amount undertake to repay after a particular future period of time, and it also guarantees that it will pay particular rate of interest to the debenture holder. It means we invested some amount to the company, and debenture is the proof that company has taken or company has borrowed from us some money. And coming to the next one, loans from bank. I have already told you that loans from bank is a very most common form that every business organization requires. So bank loans, we will repay the bank loans in a fixed future period of time, or by installment methods. By installment method also we can repay the bank loans. And other than bank loans and all these short term and medium term finances, we can get loans from specialized financial institutions like IDBI, Industrial Development Bank of India, and ICICI, Industrial Credit Corporation Investment of India, and state level financing corporations. They also provides loans to business industries. And in long term finance, we have and in long term finance we have issue of shares and issue of debentures. Earlier we discussed issue of shares and issue of debentures. Depending upon the size of the business unit, it comes under medium term finance or it comes under long term source of the finance. And retained earnings means at the end of the financial year, if company gets profit and it paid all the dividends to everyone, and then if there is any remaining amount, if company is wishing to reinvest the amount in business again, it is called as retained earnings. It means it is also called as plowing back of profits. And loans from specialized financial institutions. We have some specialized financial institutions like IFCI, Industrial Finance Corporation of India, and ICICI, Industrial Credit Investment Corporation of India, SFC, State Level Finance Corporation, IDBI, Industrial Development Bank of India, UTI, Unit Trust India, and SIDC, State Industrial Development Corporations. These are some specialized financial institutes. They provide loans to business firms to solve the problem of working capital crisis. And venture capital, the concept of venture capital first started in USA in 19th century, and later on it spread overall the world in earlier 20th centuries. And venture capital is required for startup businesses like small scale industries, and it is also called as risk capital. And let us move on to the next. We have some other important sources of finances that are not connected to our syllabus, but I would like to share some additional information for the useful of our viewers. There are some more important various sources of finance, that is seed capital assistance. Seed capital assistance is designed by IDBI, Industrial Development Bank of India, and it has 1% service charge for 5 years. And certificate of deposit. Certificate of deposit, it is issued by a banker to the person with a specified period of time and with a specified rate of interest. And there is an advantage to certificate of deposit holder. He can sell the certificate of deposit before the maturity date to the third person. It means if he need any emergency fund, he can sell the certificate of deposit to the third person before the maturity date of that certificate of deposit. And internal cash accrual, it accumulates the retained earnings of the company as well as the depreciation charges of the company. And by this, every business organization, whether it is big, small or medium, every business organization requires finance to carry out everyday business activities or to achieve its objectives or target. In fact, without adequate finance, no business organization can work in a proper way. And I hope you are little clearer about what is capital and what are the types of capitals we have, and how to make a decision to start up the business. And I would like to thank CCE and Mana TV for giving me the opportunity, and principal ma'am and my college staff, Government College Armoor, and my mentor Dr. Jyoti ma'am for guidance and encouraging me. Thank you so much.